Hi, I'm Greg Kavanaugh with the Gallup Journey magazine, and if this is your first time watching one of my car reviews, I figure I better get you up to speed. I'm just a car geek with a car and a camera. There's no fancy post-production team here. There's not even a video crew. I shoot these, I edit these, I do all of these myself. There's no waxing eloquent hyperbole while the car drives beautifully down some, country road. In fact, there's not even a script. What you see here is simply my real world authentic experiences after test driving what you see here, the 2013 Buick Encore. So hey, thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching, let's get started. Well, you guys are going to have to forgive the mess you see here a little bit as we're dealing with the remnants of Winter Storm Wanda that just made its way through the United States, and kind of the tail end of it hit us here in the land of enchantment. Now, this 2013 Buick Encore is kind of unique in that this is one of the few cars where I don't necessarily have a conclusion for you guys. For me, the verdict is not quite out yet on this car. It really is a dressed up economy car. To me, it looks like a Pontiac Vibe in a fancy suit, or even kind of looks like a roller skate or like a Reebok pump high top shoes circa 1989 or something, I'm just not so sure that does it for me. This was one of these occasions though where it seemed like a lot of people had a positive response to this vehicle and I wasn't quite so sure. And that's usually the opposite for me. Usually I'm pretty excited about the cars I drive and other people are like, oh, I don't know if I like the way that one looks. Well, this one was the opposite. Now, there's no doubt this is a dressed up economy car, but they did a pretty good job of dressing it up. Here in the front end, you can see it's got a lot of the Buick elements, fancy grille, these fake portholes, which drive me crazy, but I guess they do give it a little bit of flair. These are not gonna really look that good 5-10 years down the road. Headlights and grille and the whole front end treatment down low, the fog lights, driving lights, those things all look great. Here along the sides, you do get kind of this same rear end that you're going to get in like a Juke or even like a Nissan Murano or something like that. And like I said, kind of that vibe style. That's it does give these cars a little bit more style on the side and kind of break up the flow here and try and give it some interesting aesthetic. I just don't really like this look, and of course it also makes for terrible sight lines out the back. On the interior, you get a pretty spacious place. Mostly it's because of this really high roof line and kind of an upright seating position. You have quite a bit of space in here. Now, it's not a particularly wide car, so your shoulder to shoulder width is not particularly wide. It's noticeable right here, you only have one armrest, and that's, I think, because the seats are so close together, you can't actually have two armrests. So that kind of gives away how narrow the car actually is. In terms of interior fit and finish, it's great. It's got this contrasting stitching, which is kind of like a bluish, greenish silver color. That's really cool. This interior trim panels are awesome. As soon as I got in the car, I noticed that right away. And the overall interior has a really nice design aesthetic to it. The screen up top here is not a touch screen, and it kind of has this big hood over the top that makes it look a little bit like it was tacked on or an afterthought in terms of the design. I don't really like that much, but overall, I think they did a great job in the interior. It's a nice place to be, and it's certainly going to draw people to this car. Here in the back seat, you actually end up with quite a bit of space. This high roof line and this kind of more upright seating position, actually, you can see I'm 5'8", I'm sitting behind myself. I have a ton of space here for the knees. Underneath the seat, a ton of foot room. These rails for the seats do kind of get in the way, and they're not really that nicely done. But other than that, I mean, you can't really complain. This is a pretty narrow car, so 3 abreast here is not going to happen. You need a couple of broader dudes like myself and you're shoulder to shoulder. But other than that, it's a pretty nice place to be. And frankly, one of the coolest features is these headrests. The way they go up and down, they kind of go out when you put them down and they pop in as you put them up. Pretty cool, kind of fancy. I had to show you guys the back. Most people want to see cargo space. Now, frankly, I think the demographics for this vehicle is probably going to be people with no kids, or maybe a small child, or you know, a family whose kids are now out of the house. And in that respect, I think you do have plenty of cargo space back here for those needs. And of course, you could put the seats down if you need to get something home from IKEA. But I need to give you some frame of reference, so I brought along a couple household items to show you again. So, same cooler I used in the Prius C. As I mentioned, this cooler can fit a decent amount of tasty IPA beers, and it looks like you could maybe get about 5 of those in there. Now, when I also drove that Prius C, I brought along my guitar case, and someone actually watched a video and said to me on YouTube, was it really true that I couldn't fit my guitar case in that car? And that was the truth. Let's check here the Encore. If you go on an angle across the back, dun, 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 it does close. All right. So, this isn't going to be for a band taking all their gear, but you can get a guitar case back there, and of course you can always put those seats down. So let's talk powertrain. The 2013 Buick Encore can come in all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive, guys. I'm driving this with the front-wheel drive, and it has a 1.4-liter Ecotec turbocharged 4-cylinder. Now, it's a pretty good little motor. First of all, it returns some decent fuel economy, 25 city, 33 highway, 28 combined. You know, so those are good numbers, although there are larger cars that return just as good numbers. The Fusion I just drove basically has those same numbers. Now, what's nice about these turbocharged engines, if you've never driven one, is that they have almost diesel-like thrust in that their torque peak is so low. It's like 1,800 some RPM for this one. 148 pound-feet of torque, 138 horsepower. So because of that low torque hit, you know, when you're moving around in town, it actually feels like it's got some real punch. Now, when you get on a highway or a 2-lane, it's still only 138 horsepower, and you kind of run out of legs, you kind of run out of lungs as you're reaching the higher end of the rev range. So it's a nice combination. Now, this is a Buick, and Buick is supposed to be a luxury car. This car does not ride like other Buicks. It certainly doesn't ride like an old Buick. It's not quite as supple or as plush as, say, like an Enclave. It hides its economy car roots a little bit, but as a whole, it still makes a lot of economy car type sounds. Out on the highway, this car, you know, it has quiet tuning, which Buick does to try and make their cars quieter, but I didn't find it to be that quiet. You know, and it kind of thuds and crashes over you know, expansion joints and big stuff like on the highway, big bumps and rough pavement and so forth. So it certainly still is an economy car in that respect, but it's a decent compromise. Now, what is kind of nice is that it does have very quick steering off center, not very Buick-like in any respects. And that kind of fits the characteristics, I think, of this thing as kind of like a little urban runabout. So that's kind of nice and makes it a little more fun and sprightly and fun to drive. At $25,000, you're at a decent starting point for a Buick. If you do think of Buick as a luxury brand, $25,000 is not a bad price point to get into a luxury brand. However, if you think about comparing it to something like the Fusion I just recently drove, that thing had a tech package, leather, and of course is a much bigger car. Also has you know, a turbocharged 4-cylinder and good fuel economy. That one was $27,000. So that's something to think about in terms of the price. As I said before, I don't really have a conclusion or a verdict on this car, but in terms of the price point and getting into a Buick and a more luxury car at a lower price point, this is actually a good starting point in that respect. As always, I want to give a shout out to the people who let me use these cars and check them out. In this case, that was Rico Auto Complex at Gallup, New Mexico. Great guys down there. 2013 Buick Encore. Guys, thanks for checking it out again. Thanks for watching. As always, subscribe, share, like, comment. See you later. See you next time.